Okay, guys, let's, you do have a voting list 7, and then I think you'll see a very short, well, do we have, does everybody have this second voting list that has 2 bills on it? Or is it? Okay. Okay, voting list 8. Okay, fair enough. Let's start with Senate Bill 4, Stacy, which is an emergency bill from Senator Kagan.
Okay. Senate Bill 4, Charitable Organizations, Charitable Donation and Tax Exempt Status, Revocation, Keeping Charities Nonpartisan Act of 2026. This emergency bill prohibits a charitable organization from participating or intervening in a political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to a candidate for public office, including through publication of or distribution of statements. A violation is subject to a civil penalty of up to $5,000. Willful violations are subject to a 2-year revocation of exempt status under income tax, sales and use tax, and property tax, and that's only state law. The prohibition must be interpreted and applied in the same manner as the prohibition on political campaign activity under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3, known as the Johnson Amendment, was interpreted and applied by the Internal Revenue Service as of January 19, 2025. The bill is contingent on any action by the President of the United States or IRS or change in federal law that in whole or in part prevents the enforcement of or renders null and void the Johnson Amendment with respect to any charitable organization to which the bill's prohibition applies. There is one amendment offered by the sponsor, Senator Kagan, that begins on page 5, and the reprint begins on page 8. So this amendment adds private foundations to the provisions of law related to the prohibition on participating and intervening in a political campaign by supporting or opposing a candidate for public office. Exempts organizations under Johnson Amendment prohibition from certain enforcement provisions applicable only to state regulation of charitable organizations. It strikes provisions that would have required submission of additional attestation with registration statement of charitable organization. It strikes the penalty avoidance provisions, requires the Secretary of State or the AG to attempt to enter into settlement agreement through mediation with violators before assessing a civil penalty or revocation of tax-exempt status under state law. It decreases the penalty amount from up to $5,000 to up to $1,000 for each violation, and it authorizes a charitable organization to reapply for tax-exempt status less than 2 years following a revocation if the Secretary of State or the Attorney General enters into a settlement agreement with the charitable organization.
Okay, Senator Kagan, do you want to weigh in here? There's a document here I see that you've handed out to all the members, the description.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a really important bill that will protect Maryland's 41,000 nonprofits. It is the non-fiscal priority this session for Maryland nonprofits. The National Council of Nonprofits has been working and collaborating with us on this, and it is based on pending judicial action, pending congressional or executive action at the national level. The plan is that no matter what happens in Washington or in a courtroom in Texas or elsewhere, that Maryland's nonprofits, that nothing would change for them. They would continue operating under current status. So this is proactive that only goes into effect if there is a judicial, legislative, or executive action that would remove the Johnson Amendment that has been functioning well for 72 years and keeping folks out of partisan politics.
Okay, we have a question from Senator Watson.
Looks like one of the amendments says a certain private foundation. What are we referring to?
Can you give me a page number there?
Are you looking at the reprint or just the amendment package?
Page 8, I'm looking at the reprint.
Okay.
Okay. So that, that's the purpose paragraph they're describing. So the amendments add in what they call private foundations. So under federal law, 501c3s, you're a charitable organization. You are considered a private foundation unless you are not otherwise described in this situation. So a private foundation is a foundation that carries out their charitable activities by making grants to other charitable organizations rather than by conducting charitable programs and services directly. Most organizations are not considered private foundations because they have other tax implications to those that the other ones aren't. For example, an organization inherently public activities such as a church, qualified hospital, educational institution, that is a 501c3 but not a private foundation. A publicly supported organization or a supporting organization, those are all considered 501c3s but not private foundations.
So Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation would be a private foundation?
Let's see here. Yes, by making grants to other charitable organizations rather than, well, they do also do charitable programs and activities, so I'm not exactly sure what their status would be, but they could fall under that provision.
So organizations like the Aspen Foundation and a lot of those who have a real deal political slant on things, they could not talk politically or take a political position?
Right, they can't support a particular candidate.
Okay, all right. I think that this bill seeks to interfere with the ability of pastors to teach, disciple, and lead people under the care by directly teaching them how religious life intersects with political decisions and actions. And I think this is a bill looking for a problem that does not exist. When we had the hearing on it, I was specific and said, give me one instance where any nonprofit has lost their status because they violated this, and none could be named because it doesn't happen. And so I plan to vote against this bill because I think there's a lack of understanding on the type of dialogue that happens in a black church. And, you know, I applaud you guys with the big synagogues and the rabbis and all of that stuff. But in the black churches, we need to have dialogue. This is where we learn. This is how Martin Luther King did his thing. And I'm just against this bill. I don't think it's needed. So I'll be voting against it.
Okay, any additional questions, comments? Senator Kagan?
I'm just going to, so I don't want to relitigate or debate with Senator Watson because we have different views, which is totally fine in democracy. I just encourage colleagues to look at one of the sheets that I handed out, which is a chart. This is, as I mentioned, this is, if this only goes into effect, A, if we pass it, and B, if there is action at the federal level. You'll notice the check marks in 2 columns on 2 sides of this sheet of paper. All the things that individuals, organizations, and faith-based activities, faith-based leaders can do today and can do after this bill is enacted. And you will notice that there is 0 change. They can still solicit donations and endorse and testify on legislation and provide moral and ethical teaching, spiritual, prophetic, theological leadership. They can volunteer for a political campaign as an individual. They can conduct voter registration drive. They can do souls to the polls. Like, all of that is completely unchanged. What they can do today, they can continue to do.
I had a question. I don't recall who weighed in on at the bill hearing. Who was there opposition, and if so, from whom?
There is a lot of paper.
Unfavorable was 7. It was individual, Maryland right to life, concerned citizen. That's it.
Okay. Okay, additional questions for Stacy for the sponsor discussion?
Oh, wait, sorry, Maryland Family Institute, Maryland Baptist for Biblical Values.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay, so,
I had a question.
yeah, absolutely, Senator
Sorry.
Hester.
I was just curious if there were, any churches that weighed in for it or against it. I mean, if they even know this is happening. And I was just, I don't know if there's other members of black churches here who would tell me how they feel about the bill.
I can start with
Go on.
this list of 1,825 organizations, faith institutions, yikes, of all denominations. There are a ton of those. And then faith, yes. And then faith voices in support of keeping houses of worship nonpartisan. Tons and tons, thousands and thousands of faith organizations. Happy to pass this over if you want to take a look.
Can I suggest one thing on, okay, we're not holding the bill, but can we maybe just go through the rest of the list, voting list, and then come back to this? Because I think it seems like we're going to, well, I just rather, because I have a feeling I don't want to get bogged down on the first bill, then we're not holding it. I just want to come back to it. Okay, so let's go to Senator Simon Ayers, Senate Bill 57, Stacy, and then people can think a little bit also.
Senate Bill 57, Primary and Secondary Education, Licenses and Public Profiles, Notation of Veteran Status. This bill authorizes the Maryland State Department of Education to establish a process to include a notation of veteran status on licenses and public profiles of primary and secondary educators. If MSD establishes the process, applicants may submit documentation of veteran status and consent to the notation and to contact from appropriate executive branch agencies regarding eligibility for state and federal veterans benefits. If an applicant submits the required documentation and provides the necessary consent, MSDE must include a notation of veteran status on the applicant's license or public profile, and upon request and in accordance with applicable law, electronically transmit appropriate information to an executive branch agency. MSDE may adopt regulations to implement the bill. There are no amendments and there was no opposition.
Okay, Senator Simon Ayers, want to make a motion? Okay, sponsor moves favorable, second from Senator Harris. Discussion. Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 57 clean, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. By the way, go to the back of, there's 3 bills that have been withdrawn on the bottom of page 3, back of page 4. Can I get a motion unfavorable on the 3 withdrawals from Senator Harris? Second from the Vice Chair. All in favor of those 3 bills being withdrawn unfavorable, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Let's go back to page 1. Senate Bill 178, we are going to hold. Next, go to Senate Bill 237 from Senator Kagan. Stacy?
Senate Bill 237, Election Law, Presidential Electors, Selection and Voting. This bill modifies provisions governing the nomination and election of presidential electors in the state and the casting of electors' votes, primarily by 1, requiring electors to pledge to cast their votes for president and vice president in a manner consistent with the party or unaffiliated presidential candidate which nominated them for elector, and 2, establishing procedures for the appointment of substitute electors in the event of a vacancy in the office of elector, and establishing that an elector vacates the office if the elector refuses to present a ballot, presents an unmarked ballot, or presents a ballot marked in violation of their pledge. There were no amendments and no opposition.
Questions on Senate Bill 237? Yes, Senator Simon Ayers.
Yeah, just a quick question. I see this is after the Uniform Law Commission model, is that correct? And I like the bill. I just noticed they signed up favorable with amendment, and their testimony says favor of Senate Bill 237 with amendments. Do you know what that is?
I think that was looking for us to get into a national compact and do the whole Jamie Raskin relying on other states.
Okay.
The House just passed The House just passed this bill unanimously yesterday, and I believe, Abril, I think they did not amend in that way. So we were going to match the House and not take that amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Okay. Vice Chair, you want to move the bill?
Move bill.
Senate Bill 237 is moved favorable. Second, Senator Harris. All in favor, Senate Bill 237, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Let's go to the next page. Senator Brooks' bill, Senate Bill 263.
Senate Bill 263, Education, Dependent Children of Active Service Members, Advance Enrollment Procedures. This bill requires local school systems to allow a dependent child of an active service member to apply for advance enrollment in public school and specifies requirements for advance enrollment procedures. The Secretary of Veterans and Military Families, in consultation with specified entities, must publish and maintain information on advance enrollment procedures and any assistance and services available to service members regarding advance enrollment. There are two amendments being offered. The first is a co-sponsor amendment by Senator Simonaire, and the other is on page 34 of your packet, and that is offered by Senator Brooks. And this would require the Secretary of Veterans and Military Families, in consultation with specified entities, to publish and maintain information on the Purple Star programs, Purple Star Schools program, and the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, in addition to the advanced enrollment procedures under the bill.
Pick up that sponsor amendment first. Who wants to be on the bill? Simonaire, Carrozza, Attar, Harris, Kagan, Feldman, Hester. Who does not want to be on the bill? Okay. Okay. Pro-vet committee, we want to support. Okay, everybody, all in favor of that sponsorship amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, now we're on the Brooks amendment. Okay, questions about that Brooks amendment? Senator Brooks? Yeah, page 34 there is a Brooks amendment. So take a look at those Brooks amendments on page 34. And if anybody has any questions, we can ask Senator Brooks or Stacy. Yeah, Senator Simonaire.
Just a quick question. I know Senator Carrozza is putting a Purple Star in for colleges. Is there any way to word this that it would incorporate that? You can't do it until it's actually. Okay.
Additional questions? Okay. Anybody want to move that Brooks amendment? Brooks? Senator Brooks moves his amendment. A second from Senator Watson. I could see he eagerly wanted to get involved in this bill. Okay, all in favor of the Brooks amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? Senator Brooks, would you like to move the bill as amended? Yeah, move the bill as amended. Okay, Senate Bill 263 as amended is in front of us. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, 263 as amended passes. Okay, House Senate Bill 292. Now, the cross-file has passed with some amendments. There are amendments from Bailey and Watson in the packet. MSD sort of likes some amendments from the House, doesn't like some of ours. Can I just propose we hold this? I like to hold it. Yeah, let's figure out these amendments, Watson amendments, and the amendments over there. Okay, we're holding 292. Senate Bill 339, Stacy.
Senate Bill 339, Maryland School for the Deaf, membership of Board of Trustees alterations. This bill decreases the number of members of the Board of Trustees for the Maryland School for the Deaf from 19 to 13. The bill also increases the minimum number of board members that must be deaf from 6 to 7. Finally, the bill establishes provisions for phasing out the 6 board members. There are no amendments and there was no opposition.
Okay. Anybody want to do a motion on this one? No opposition, no amendment bill. Senator Harris. Senate Bill 339, second from Senator Brooks. Discussion. All in favor, Senate Bill 339, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next, go to Senator Henson bill, Senate Bill 359. Stacy.
Senate Bill 359, Child Care Facilities Criminal History Records Check Requirement. This bill requires individuals who will have direct contact with children in certain child care facilities to submit to a criminal history records check in accordance with current statutory provisions under the Family Law Article. The Maryland State Department of Education must establish a centralized unit for the processing and management of information about criminal history records check. The bill also alters statutory provisions regarding MSDE to establish probationary employment qualifications for first-time child care teachers in a child care center that serves preschool or school-aged children. Finally, the bill repeals the limitation on the number of deputy state superintendent of schools that may be appointed. There is one amendment offered by Senator Henson on page 42 with a reprint on page 43. And this amendment makes 2 clarifying changes. It ensures that the criminal history records check processed by MSDE apply only to child care facilities that are licensed. And I noticed there was a mistake in there. In the family law article, it references child care facilities that are licensed, and then there are family child care homes that are registered, and I assume that they want to include all of that. So my handwriting says licensed or registered by MSDE, and establish a June 30th, 2027 deadline for MSDE to establish a centralized unit for the processing and management of these criminal history records checked for child care services. I think the fiscal note on this was they can do this with their resources. 359.
Watts, this is on the amendment. We got to move the amendment with that, with the technical correction.
Yes, with
from-
existing resources.
Yeah, Watts moves favorable on the amendment. Is there a second? Who's our second? Senator Harris. Okay, all in favor of the Henson amendment on the Henson bill, raise your hand. All opposed, that amendment carries. We have Senate Bill 359 as amended before us. Is there a motion? Senator Watson moves favorable. Is there a second from Senator Harris? Senate Bill 359 as amended is before us. Discussion, all in favor, 359 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Senate Bill 371 from Senator Carrozza, an emergency piece of legislation. April?
Senate Bill 371, Water Pollution Control Discharge Permits Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations. This emergency bill repeals the requirement that a person hold a concentrated animal feeding operation or CAFO discharge permit issued by the Maryland Department of the Environment before beginning construction on any part of a new CAFO. The bill also repeals a prohibition against the department issuing a CAFO discharge permit to a person who violates the requirement. There are amendments in your bill packet being offered by the bill's sponsor, Senator Carrozza. The amendment is on page 47. The reprint begins on page 49. The amendments add language allowing the department, in cases where the general discharge permit for an animal feeding operation is administratively extended, to authorize a person to begin construction on any part of a new animal feeding operation under an approved process established by the department that requires the person to demonstrate compliance with the requirements for coverage under the administratively extended general permit and all other applicable laws and regulations. For context, these amendments conform the bill to its House cross-file as it passed the House.
Okay, so these amendments match House cross-file that can't come over from the House, correct? Senator Carrozza? Okay. Okay, you want to move your amendments?
I'll move the amendments.
Okay, second from Senator Gallion. Discussion on the Carrozza amendments to Senate Bill 371. Okay, all in favor of the amendments from Senator Carrozza, raise your hand. All opposed? Those amendments do carry. Senator Carrozza, want to make a motion?
The bill or speak?
I'm sorry?
Can I say something? I would just like to suggest that the committee write a letter to MDE to make sure that they don't miss any expiring important things in the future. I mean, I think that was part of our discussion, and this has caused a lot of harm. So I think that, for what it's worth, I think we should write them a letter and make them do some homework.
Let's, here, I think this next bill might take a little conversation too. So let's go, and then we'll come back to the Kagan and Kramer bills. Let's just go to Senator Brooks's Senate Bill 430. Well, no, let's just go to the Kramer bill, Senate Bill 423. Okay, April, let's see where the committee is on this. Senate Bill 423.
All right, Senate Bill 423, Research Facilities and Testing Facilities that Use Animals, Prohibitions and Adoption Requirements, Animal Research Modernization and Best Practices Act of 2026. Senate Bill 423 prohibits, except for biomedical research, a testing facility from using traditional animal test methods if the agency responsible for regulating the specific product or activity for which a test method is being used has 1, approved an appropriate alternative test method, or 2, made available to or granted the testing facility a waiver from using a traditional animal test method. The bill also establishes provisions regarding devocalization surgery and euthanasia with respect to dogs and cats that are applicable to a research facility or testing facility in the state that uses live vertebrate animals, establishes various penalties, and requires specified reporting. No amendments have been received at this point, although I would note that some amendments were suggested by the Veterinary Society on your floor system.
We don't have any amendments from a senator here in committee, so. Okay, let's get a conversation going. Questions for April about the bill, Senate Bill 423? Okay, anybody want to? Okay, anybody can make a motion? Okay, with it. Senator Brooks moves the bill. Second from Senator Harris. Discussion? We'll take a roll call on this one. Roll call on Senate Bill 420. Yes, Vice Chair Kagan.
For April. April, it says that this does not have any impact on biomedical research, right? So the life-saving drugs, research on that, this would not affect that?
So the biomedical research is a defined term in the bill. So it says it means the investigation of the biological processes and causes of disease, or research conducted to increase fundamental scientific knowledge, expand the understanding of how processes in living organisms develop and function. Biomedical research does not include testing done to assess the safety or efficacy of chemical substances, ingredients, drugs, vaccines, products, or product formulations. So they're drawing a distinction there between essentially toxicity testing. So if you're testing an ingredient that might be going into a vaccine for toxicity, it would be subject to these requirements to the extent that the facility is a testing facility as opposed to a research facility. So the bill basically excludes academic institutions from the definition of testing facility, which this is a complicated way of answering your question, but it could have implications for vaccine ingredients for some testing facilities.
Question.
Okay, well, let's go around the horn. Let's go Senator Gallion, Attar, then Simon Eric. Okay.
So it was briefly mentioned about the Maryland Veterinary Medical Association, and they favorable with amendments. Was there any discussion by the sponsor of accepting what they wanted as an amendment?
I have not received any amendments from the sponsor.
As you know, like, organizations can't submit, somebody,
Right, yeah.
Senator Kramer has
Yeah,
not submitted any amendments. That's, all I can say as we sit here.
Okay, I mean, because, you had some unfavorables, but that was seemed like a pretty reasonable favorable with amendment from them. So I just, just curious if there's been any discussion on that.
I mean, that's what, let's get the issues on the table. Senator Tarr?
Well, April, I think your answer did confuse me a bit. You said that it won't affect universities? Because I'm looking at Johns Hopkins' testimony, it's unfavorable, and they're going into detail as to why this would affect them.
So there's different parts of the bill that contain sort of different provisions. The provisions that talk about the required use of alternative test methods only apply to test facilities. And that is testing facilities. That is a defined term that excludes a school or institution of higher education. So I don't know whether Hopkins, I don't know enough about how Hopkins is structured to know whether their research is being done by the institution of higher education versus the medical system. I
Got
don't
it.
quite know that breakdown.
Mr. Chair, can we hold this so I can speak to Hopkins?
Yeah, okay, so I guess I think that was what, we have it on the list, forget that. I would suggest, now we do have a motion and a second, but my sense is the committee wants to get a little more information, clarity before we actually take a vote. So when we do reconvene, we can do it on Tuesday. We'll start with the favorable that's on the table with the second, but I want everybody to get as much information about this as possible. So let's hold this unless somebody really insists that we have to vote it. I would suggest that would be my recommendation. Okay? Okay, let's hold this bill and let's go to the next bill from Senator Brooks, Senate Bill 431. April, Senate Bill 431.
Senate Bill 431, Fish and Wildlife, Endangered and Threatened Species and Migratory Birds, Regulations, Listing, Petitions, Essential Habitats, and Takings. This bill makes changes to the state's endangered and threatened species laws and provisions governing the Irreplaceable Natural Areas Program by 1, defining foreseeable future and harm under the endangered and threatened species laws and modifying provisions governing listing or delisting species as endangered or threatened species. 2, authorizing designation of essential habitats for endangered and threatened species. 3, prohibiting a person from taking a migratory bird listed as a protected migratory bird under federal regulations as of January 1st, 2025, except as provided in regulations adopted by the Secretary of Natural Resources. And 4, requiring the Department of Natural Resources to review and, if warranted, update regulations carrying out the Irreplaceable Natural Areas Program by July 1st, 2033, and every 10 years thereafter. There are amendments in your voting packet, both offered by the bill sponsor, Senator Brooks. This first is on page 51. This amendment would authorize the Secretary of Natural Resources to adopt management protocols for designated essential habitats. The second amendment is on page 52. This would provide that in the event the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service removes black vulture from the list of protected species under the Federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the department would have to promulgate regulations authorizing the taking of black vultures in a similar manner and with the same authorizations as a depredation permit issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Black vulture.
Sure. Question?
So does the amendment make it easier to kill these black vultures? And the reason I ask is they are so nasty. They will swoop in on a newborn animal like a calf or something, swoop in, poke their eyes out, and the animal dies. So the more of these black vultures we can get rid of, in my opinion, the better. So how does that address this?
So what the amendment is intended to do is to maintain the status quo. So this would say, though, this whole bill, my understanding, is sort of premised on a concern about what may be happening in the near future at the federal level, and to sort of make sure that the state can kind of maintain that status quo. That amendment would say, because right now you have these federal depredation permits, it would just sort of say, if that goes away at the federal level, kicks it to the state, and the state would have to implement those in the exact same way.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any additional questions on the amendment from the sponsor? Okay, Senator Brooks, do you want to move your amendment? Okay, second from Senator Harris. Further discussion on the Brooks amendment?
2 amendments.
I'm sorry, 2 amendments? Okay. Okay, all in favor of the Brooks amendments, 2 amendments, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Those amendments carry unanimously. Senate Bill 431 as amended is before us. Is there a motion? Okay, Senator Brooks moves the bill as amended. Senator Harris, second. Discussion on Senate Bill 431 as amended. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Senate Bill 431 as amended passes unanimously. Before we go to this next page, can we just go to voting list 8 very quickly? Because we're second on a bill that from JPR that's already passed, a Senator Bailey bill, and I'd just like to take it up. Do you have a voting list number 8? Does everybody have a voting list number 8? Okay, if you can see, we're number 2. Stacy, why don't you just describe what JPR has passed and sent to us?
Senate Bill 101, Higher Education, Loan Repayment, and Scholarships for Correctional Officers. As the chair said, this is secondary from JPR. This bill expands eligibility for the Maryland Police Officers and Probation Agents Scholarship Program and the Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program, LARP, for police officers and probation agents to include correctional officers and renames the programs accordingly. Correctional officers are subject to the same eligibility requirements and service obligation requirements established under current law for police officers and probation agents. The vote in JPR was unanimous, and there is a request for co-sponsors for both Senator Hester and Senator Carrozza.
Anybody else want to be a sponsor of this bill? Okay, we've got Senator Watson, Attar, in addition to the Senator Brooks. Anybody else? Okay, is there a motion on the sponsor amendment? Okay, we've got Senator Hester, second from Senator Gallion. All in favor of the sponsor amendment, raise your hand. All opposed, that carries. We have Senate Bill 101 from JPR as amended in front of us. Is there a motion? Okay, Senator Harris moves the bill as amended. Is there a second from Senator Carrozza? All in favor, Senate Bill 101 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. And on that same list, Senate Bill 114 is being held. So now let's move back to vote list number 7. And just, by the way, go down to Feldman Bill, Senate Bill 697. We're holding that bill as well. Okay, now, Senate Bill 697, right above the withdrawals, is being held. Now we're going to go up to Senate Bill 443, Senator Carrozza. Emergency bill. Stacy.
Okay. Senate Bill 443, Local Boards of Elections, Board Council Qualifications. This emergency bill modifies a provision that authorizes a local board of elections to appoint or retain an individual as counsel. The bill modifies the provision by requiring that the individual be a registered voter of the state rather than a registered voter of the local board's county. There were no amendments and there was no opposition.
Vice Chair. All in favor, Senate Bill 443, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. I'm going to go to an Augustine bill, Senate Bill 553. April.
Senate Bill 553, Commission to Advance Lithium-Ion Battery Safety in Maryland, reestablishment. This bill reestablishes the Commission to Advance Lithium-Ion Battery Safety in Maryland. The membership of the reestablished commission is the same as before, with the addition of the following members: 1 member of the Port Administration, 1 member of the ocean freight shipping industry, 1 representative of the casualty insurance industry, 1 representative of the commercial insurance industry, and 1 representative of the Department of the Environment's Land and Materials Administration. Additionally, in keeping with the recommendations from the Commission's 2025 report, the mandate of the Commission is expanded to include 1, battery risk at the Port of Baltimore, roads, rails, and tunnels throughout Maryland; 2, impacts of battery risk on insurance providers and insurance coverage availability; and 3, the integration of pending federal regulations and emerging third-party standards. Interim and final reports are due on December 1st, 2026 and 2027, respectively. There are no amendments in the voting packet. However, there were a few people who had requested at the bill hearing to be added on. My understanding is Senator Carrozza intends to offer an amendment proposed by the Maryland Turf Grass Council to add a representative of the council to the commission.
May I move that amendment?
Senator Augustine.
Senator Augustine has said that he takes no position. It's at the will of the committee to add members.
Okay, we have a amendment. Okay, who is it again? I apologize. Who are we at? Who do you want to add in the amendment? Turf? Okay, fair enough. Okay, any question for Senator Carrozza about her amendment to add Turf Council to this? Okay. Okay, she's moving her amendment. Second. Okay, now we'll take some questions. Second from Gallion. Now we have the amendment in front of us to add that member. So, Senator Hester.
I'm sorry, I'm totally not in the details of this bill, but turf grass and lithium-ion batteries, what's the connection?
Yeah, okay. What, Senator Carozza, what's the connection? Here, come on up here, real quick. Yeah, as Senator Hester posed the question, the connection between the topic of the bill and the membership of this entity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thanks for the question, Senator. So the Maryland Turfgrass Council is a nonprofit organization that's made up of a variety of landscapers. They handle management on fields, parks, and recreations. And we know that we're seeing the proliferation of energy batteries in those products, but they don't necessarily have standards uniformly talking about the safety, reuse, recycle, and storage. And certainly from a safety aspect for the employees and also for any of the employers utilizing those batteries, it's incumbent upon the Turfgrass Council to know what those standards could be. And so as part of the contributions, they like to be a part of the discussion and provide some insight from their industry how they could provide some recommendations for the commission moving forward.
Senator Hester, thoughts?
Sorry, I might just be tired. I still don't exactly see why batteries and turf grass go together. Are there more likely to be batteries and turf than there might be scattered around this room?
So the batteries that they use are in the equipment. So the more that we're seeing technology grow where the equipment, instead of moving away from fossil fuels, they're using more and more of the batteries, and those batteries have lithium ion in them. So from the standpoint, the Turfgrass Council would like to know and to be a participant on how best they can provide safety and reuse and repurpose, and also how they're storing those current products with those components in those batteries. Batteries that leaf blowers is a perfect example. So the batteries that are being used for leaf blowers and mowers like that, they have lithium ion on there. So again, as we start seeing more of technology advance, utilizing those machines or those equipments, that is why we were hoping to have a conversation and seat at the table on this discussion.
Please. Are you an expert on this matter? Can you shed some light?
I was just going to just piggyback on what Senator Hester was asking, and I was just want to ask council, who's on the commission now? Because and the reason why I asked that question, because I mean the leaf blower turf, they ain't the only one with batteries, right? And so it'd be an endless list of folks that we will have to add on the commission if we're just going to just throw in anyone on it that use a battery.
Yeah, Senator Carozza, and then we'll go to Senator Gallion.
It says any other members as determined, so it kind of left that open in the legislation. Plus, Senator Augustine, he was okay with
Yes, we've expressed several times to Senator Augustine our position. We were at the table supporting this bill on both hearings, actually. So we've had conversations with both the House and Senate sponsors on this, and they seem to be fine.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh? April, anything else you want to impart on this subject, on the amendment to the committee before we?
I mean, your question of who's on the commission now, I mean, you can read that it's beginning at the bottom of page 1 of the bill, goes through page 3. The only other thing I will add is that this is the commission already existed. It sunset before they felt like they had completed their work. So the bill reestablishes the commission with the existing membership, and the expanded membership right now is focused on the Port Administration and on representatives from sort of transportation sector and insurance sector, because liability was sort of they felt was sort of the lacking interest. And that's the expanded mandate, again, is getting more into that sort of transportation and insurance/liability side of things. It's the context for the bill.
Okay, Senator Kagan.
Just a quick question, April. Is there anything in this, I'm reading it, it looks like there are 26 members of the commission, which is a lot. I did a really quick count. I'm just wondering, is there anything that precludes the commission from seeking guidance from outside experts, people who don't have a vote, but who are still experts or have interests?
No, and the commission itself can add members.
Okay, so the commission itself could add you if they wanted to. Okay. Okay, well, we had a motion. We could do, a roll call. I don't know how best to handle this other than yes or no on adding this entity. We heard, I guess, the arguments. And Memoria, it's on the Carrozza Amendment, and you can vote yes or you can vote no. What's that? Okay. Okay, all in favor of the Carrozza Amendment, raise your hand. Okay. Where were you, Ms. Senator? Okay, all opposed? Okay, sorry, Mary Beth, this amendment is not compelling to me, but, the commission can add it on their own. Okay, the amendment fails, and we now have the bill in front of us, clean from Senator Augustine, Senate Bill 553. Is there a motion on the Augustine bill? Move favorable from the vice chair. Second from anybody here on the committee, from Senator Harris. All in favor, Senate Bill 553 clean, raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 553 carries unanimously. Senate Bill 580, Devin?
Senate Bill 580, you guys are going to have to excuse me. Senate Bill 580, State Government Walk-in Service Requirements. This bill requires specified state divisions and programs to provide walk-in service to the public on a first-come, first-served basis at a reasonable frequency, but not less than 1 day per week, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. If the specified division or program regularly provides in-person appointments to the public, they must provide walk-in service at each location where in-person appointments are held. If the specified division or program does not regularly provide in-person appointments to the public, it must establish at least one location to provide walk-in services as specified. There are 2 sets of amendments in your packet, beginning on page 53 from the sponsor, Senator Jennings, and then there is an amendment from Senator Kagan as well that is not in your packet. The crux of these amendments from the sponsor would add the comptroller's office to the provisions of the bill and removes the first-come, first-served requirement and removes programs from the Department of Commerce, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Department of Health. Senator Kagan's amendment would remove the motor vehicle administrations from the provisions of the bill. If you recall, during the hearing for this bill, the testimony you received 2 unfavorables and 2 informations from those 4 agencies. With the removal of those 4 agencies, they have removed their opposition.
Okay, so people went out of the bill. There's a lot of opting out of the bill. Okay, Senator Gallion.
Since we asked on the last bill if the sponsor had been asked about their support for an amendment, was the sponsor asked about your amendment, Madam Vice Chair?
That is a totally good question, and the answer is no. I apologize. I did not talk to him about that. I've heard from a number of folks who would like to be exempted, removed from this bill. I'm happy to talk to Senator Jennings,
can we hold
of course.
it and check with them?
Happy to.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, Senator Gallion, the Motor Vehicle Administration lobbyists or government affairs representatives here who can talk to the conversation with Senator Jennings.
Okay, that'd be, so I'll remove my request for a hold till after we hear. It might be a mute point, so let's see.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I forgot that I wanted to add an amendment to SB 553. Can I do a motion to reconsider?
I'll say yes. Okay. What do you want to do? What do you want to add?
We need to add because.
Okay.
Let's do this first.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for coming.
Yes. Lisa Disley, for the record. I am the liaison for MBA. We spoke to both Senator Kagan and Senator Jennings about this, and he expressed that he is okay with it. MBA does take walk-ins, but we slot them into appointments. We keep about half of our appointments free daily so that we have room to do that. And in the end, about half of our transactions are people who made same-day appointments. So he was satisfied with that information.
Okay. We good?
Was there another amendment that wasn't MBA
Yes.
Who was
Yes.
that?
So that the amendments added the Office of the Comptroller from Senator Jennings, adds the Office of the Comptroller to the amendment, to the bill, but removes the Department of Health, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Department of Commerce. And those were sponsored by Senator Jennings, the sponsor.
Okay, so the only one not offered by the sponsor was the
Was
MVA.
MVA,
Okay,
correct.
Let's go ahead.
Two
and move
separate, we have a Jennings amendment, we have a Kagan amendment, correct?
Move
Just a
the-
question.
Move the amendments then.
Okay.
Can I
Okay, question from Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you. So you said that Senator Jennings was a remove, and one add, and you said that he's proposing to add the comptroller. Do we know if the comptroller knows that their office is being proposed to be added to this?
I do not know that.
I'm interested in that because
Okay, okay, well, here. Why don't we do this? Because, let's get clarification directly from Senator Jennings about your amendment, about the comptroller. I kind of feel like we were going to hold it, and we kind of pulled back because we wanted to hear from MVA. Why don't we just go back to the hold position so we can get all this clarified? The comptroller will know. Maybe they have an opinion on all this, okay? We good? Okay.
Sure.
Now let's go back to, we're going to hold 580, we're going to go back to 553. Okay, so we have passed the bill clean, and you wanted to add what kind of an amendment, and we will take it up.
I apologize, colleagues. This was sitting in front of me, and I got wrapped up in another bill at the time. So because the commission scope is being expanded to include the research and review of battery risk at the Port of Baltimore roads, rails, and tunnels throughout Maryland, the towing and recovery professionals of Maryland are asking that the bill be amended to add one representative from that organization. I've spoken to Senator Augustine. While he was concerned about the number, he was okay with it.
Okay, any questions for Senator Watson about this addition? Senator Gallion, then Senator Carosa.
To me, that makes a lot of sense because you get a car accident, they're the ones that are coming out and towing that vehicle, just like they would any other vehicle when there's a wreck. So to me, that honestly makes a lot of sense to have them on there.
Okay, Senator Carosa, you had a question?
No, we just shot down the one at addition, and now we're adding someone, so it just.
Well, but these are separate issues. I mean, every one of these amendments can take on its own life form, so I don't know that there's any correlation there. Okay, the first question on the table is you have to move. Why don't you submit or express a motion for reconsideration of that vote so we can formally revisit 553 for purposes of
Mr. Chair, I move
possible amendment.
I move that we reconsider the vote for Senate Bill 553.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, we'll just go through it that way. Okay, it's being reconsidered. The bill was clean. It had no amendments previously. Do you want to move the amendment that you just described?
I'd like to move the amendment. Want me to read it?
Yeah, read it.
I'd like to move the amendment to add one representative of the towing and recovery professionals of Maryland.
Okay. Is there a second from Senator Gallion? Okay, there's a motion, a second. Okay, now we can have a conversation about this amendment, whether to add this particular addition. Senator Simonaire?
Yeah. Apologize for not knowing this. Are the batteries for these electric vehicles, are they lithium?
Well, that's the bill, right?
No, I know that's the bill. I was asking, is that the type of battery in an electric vehicle?
That's my understanding.
So
It's not solid state. It's got to be.
Gallion?
make sure I have the right bill up here. Is it?
April says they are. April says they are. So
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at the list, oh man, let me hit this real quick. Text. I had this bill originally, so that's why some extra interest in there. The original formation of this. That's why you're looking at like the fire marshal, different groups on there, professional firefighters. So these EVs, when they catch fire, is a major concern in the fire service. These things burn hotter. that's a big driver of this original thing a couple years, or last year, well, it might have been a couple years ago now, I guess. So as I mentioned before, the reason it really makes sense to have the towing and recovery folks represented on here is because, say if you get a 1050 PI, which is like a car wreck with injury or something like that, or a fire on the road with one of these vehicles, after the fire's out or after the rescue is done or whatever, they're being towed away by members of this organization. So it makes, I think, really good sense to have them on this.
Again, the nexus issue came up with the last amendment from Senator Carrozza. This, now we're discussing whether there's an appropriate nexus to add, make this addition to the, and so the question on the table, we do have a motion from Senator Watson, a second from Senator Gallion. Additional questions about the nexus argument on this amendment?
I just have, I'm a little confused, Senator Watson and Senator Gallion. I feel like I'm hearing two different things, but again, maybe I'm just, Senator Watson, I feel like you were talking about tow trucks, and Senator Gallion, it sounds like you were talking about EVs. Is that the same?
The electric vehicles do not have conventional transmission systems. It must be towed in specific ways to avoid electrical issues, overheating, and damage to the battery pack. And the batteries themselves pose risk and must be handled in a certain manner with protective equipment, which is why this organization feels it's important, because they're the ones who have to go and do the cleanup to be added to the bill.
So we're saying the same thing.
Same thing.
Mine were better.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Was it blockchain again?
Okay, guys. Additional conversation about the Watson amendment.
30 seconds.
Okay, so now rubber hits the road. Is the committee convinced that this particular addition has the nexus argument compelling? Okay, well, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the Watson amendment, raise your hand.
You made sense.
All opposed? Okay, the Watson amendment carries. We now have 553 as amended in front of us. Is there a motion?
Amendment.
Senator Harris moves 553 as amended. Second from Senator Watson. All in favor of 553 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed? That motion carries. It's next, and we held 580. Let's go to 620 from Senator Kramer. Devin?
29.
I'm sorry, 629.
Senate Bill 629, Information Technology, State and Higher Education Email Requirements. This bill states that it is the policy of the state that email systems and resources for state and higher education employees are intended to support state business and may not serve as a public forum. The bill also requires the information technology policies, plans, and standards in place for state agencies and institutes for higher education to include provisions protecting employee email services from spam email and other uses that do not support state business. However, the policies, plans, and standards must permit incidental personal use of IT, including email by state employees that has a de minimis impact on resources and is consistent with generally accepted professional business norms and expectations. There are no amendments, there was no opposition, there's no fiscal cost, and this codifies and clarifies existing practice.
Okay, we got a favorable from the vice chair on 629, a second from Senator Gallion. Yeah, okay, on this no opposition, no fiscal note bill, all in favor of Senate Bill 629 clean, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. I'm going to go to you, Devin, back to you, 653 from Senator Kagan.
Senate Bill 653, State Board of Architects, Grounds for Discipline Requirements. This bill requires, rather than authorizes, the State Board of Architects to deny or suspend a license or reprimand a license under specified circumstances. The bill also expands the circumstances under which the board may deny, reprimand, or suspend a license or permit to include situations in which an applicant or a licensee misrepresents that the individual holds a license or permit. The board must notify each county's code official if a license is suspended or revoked, and also requires a code official to verify a licensee's credentials when reviewing and approving architectural documents. There are amendments beginning on page 61 of your packet from the sponsor sponsor, Senator Kagan, with a reprint following. The amendments authorize the board to establish an electronic portal to allow anonymous reporting of violations and clarifies that a code official shall verify with the architect who signed the documents the seal and license of the architect before a permit is processed.
Senator Kagan, you want to add anything to the what Devin described on your amendments?
This is a real-life problem, and just authorizing and allowing enforcement technology to make sure that people who don't have the skills aren't building things and that will endanger our constituents.
Okay, you want to move your amendments?
Move the amendments.
Okay, we have Senator Kagan moves the Kagan amendments on Senate Bill 653. Is there a second? Second from Senator Harris. Question from Senator Simoner.
Yeah, I like the bill. This is first I'm seeing the amendment. So this can be an anonymous reporting of suspected violations. So is this a public portal that the public can see?
Thank you for the question. An architect actually suggested that. First off, it wouldn't require it. It's a may, that if they want to, that they could establish it. Apparently, it's a very chummy community and everyone knows each other. So if someone places an accusation, there might be a disincentive to anyone reporting fraud. And so this way, if they decide to create a portal, that there might be the opportunity to investigate it once it's in the portal.
And it's public?
Yeah.
So
I shouldn't say that. If it's a may, I think they'd figure out how they would do it. I'm not sure whether they would make it public or not, but it would certainly be publicly accessible, or else it couldn't be used.
one of my concerns is there's a lot of boards, and this would probably be unique among them. But secondly, the competition could come in and put bad marks to try to get an advantage on them. So is there any protection against that?
Certainly the complaints wouldn't be public. It would be accessible. But I'm happy for language that would say that complaints or accusations would obviously be private. And that's a great example of a possible problem.
Feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that.
Work on amendment?
Devin, maybe just a quick, maybe it's even one word, just a private portal or a publicly accessible but private portal.
Whatever the wish of the committee is.
What do you want to do?
I'm fine with that.
Fine with what?
Fine with what Senator Simoner is suggesting.
Okay, let's get a question from Senator Carrozza first.
So when the bill came in, AIA, and they were all supportive, then you've added amendments, and you said it was at the suggestion of an architect. Is AIA now supporting, as an organization, supporting the amendment?
Yeah, they do. And again, this is a may on the portal, and they were fine with that.
Okay, is that your understanding also, Devin?
Yes, it's a may. It doesn't require the board to establish this electronic portal.
So let's go back. Yeah, go on.
My question was, the way it was presented, the amendment, it made it sound like one architect came and made the suggestion as opposed to AIA as an organization.
Thank you for seeking clarification. One person came up with the idea. I thought it made sense. They made a good argument. We tossed it to the architects, asked what they thought, and they were fine with it as a may. And they may do it and they may not. So thank you.
Okay, so back to the Simoner issue, conceptual amendment. Okay, I just want there to be clarity. I don't want there to be any ambiguity here. Okay, what are you proposing that Devin, and this is for you, Senator Simoner, so we're of like mind about what we're asking?
On page 66.
The thing I was saying is I wouldn't want the complaint to be public. If they want to anonymously contact the board, that's fine, but I wouldn't want it to be public. For an allegation.
Okay.
I agree, because somebody could hide behind that anonymous and hurt a competitor. So you wouldn't want that out publicly if the person's not putting their name behind it.
Okay, Devin, are you comfortable with what you just heard for purposes of crafting some amendment before we go to the floor?
So I am comfortable. However, just, you know, the complaints are never public. They're always going to be held private. And so I don't think that the amendment would necessarily be necessary, but I'm happy to do whatever the committee wishes.
Okay, Senator Simon-Ayer, you heard what Devin said, that
Yeah, I hear that, but this is, I imagine they can give complaints now, and they're probably kept private. But this is establishing an electronic portal, and it's not giving the roadmap to say whether this, it's front-facing so you can enter it, but is it public for people to view? I would like clarity on that.
So Senator Simon-Ayer and Senator Kagan, I would then suggest that we would add a second part under the new 3-502 that establishes the electronic portal and clarify that that portal is private.
okay, you guys good with that? Okay,
Publicly accessible, but that the complaints are private.
Correct.
Yeah, because they have to find it.
okay, let's take a formal vote.
Yeah.
We have a motion from Senator Simon-Ayer, a second from the Vice Chair for Devin to craft that conceptual amendment. Everybody okay with that? Raise your hand if you do support that. All okay? Carries unanimously. Now we have the bill in front of us, 653, with these amendments. Any discussion? Any motion, Madam Vice Chair? Okay, Senator Kagan moves 653 amendments. Is there a second? From Senator Simon-Ayer. All in favor of 653 as amended, raise your hand. Okay, which brings us to the final bill. Ironically, we've got D27 night, and it is a Senator Harris bill. And the question is, do we send Senator Harris to D27 night with a big win on Senate Bill 665? Okay, Devin, tell us what 665 does.
Senate Bill 665, Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing and Maryland Advisory Council on Deaf and Hard of Hearing, renaming. This bill renames the Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing to be the Office of Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing. The Maryland Advisory Council on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing is also renamed to be the Maryland Advisory Council on the Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing. The bill also makes technical and clarifying changes to effectuate the renaming of the office and the council. There were no amendments, there was no opposition, there is no fiscal cost to this bill.
Okay, Senator Harris, would you like to do anything with that bill? Okay, Senator Harris moves the Harris bill, 665, second from Senator Carrozza. Discussion. All in favor of Senate Bill 665, raise your hand. All opposed? That motion carries unanimously. We do have to go back to the first bill, Senate Bill 4. Okay, Senate Bill 4. That'll be our final piece of work for tonight. Senate Bill 4, where did we leave it? We left it with Senator Watson expressed some issues. I don't recall. Where did we leave it? There hasn't been a motion. Stacy? There was no motions, and there were some questions, discussion.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion to move the amendment on Senate Bill 4, a second from the Vice Chair. Discussion on the amendments that were described early on. Okay, all in favor of the amendments to Senate Bill 4, raise your hand. All, okay, well, we're going to have to do it. Let's do a roll call because I'm not quite sure I know where people are. This is the amendments to Senate Bill 4. Lamoria.
Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Hester? Yes. Senator Hester, yes. Senator Gallion? Yes. Senator Gallion, yes. Senator Watson? Yes. Senator Watson, yes. Senator Attar? Yes. Senator Attar, yes. Senator Harris? Senator Harris, yes. Senator Brooks? Yes. Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carrozza? Yes. Senator Carrozza, yes. Senator Simon-Ayer? Senator Simon-Ayer, yes. And Senator Feldman?
Amendments carry, yes. As amended before us. Any further questions, discussions, motions?
Move favorable as amended.
Okay, Senate Bill 4 has been moved. Second from Senator Harris. Let's do because I definitely have some dissent. Let's do a quick roll call on Senate Bill 4 as amended, and that'll be the last vote of tonight.
All right, Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Hester? Yes. Senator Hester, yes. Senator Gallion? No. Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson? No. Senator Watson, no. Senator Attar? Yes. Senator Attar, yes. Senator Harris? Senator Harris, yes. Senator Brooks? Yes. Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carrozza? No.
Senator Feroza, no. Senator Simonaire? Senator Simonaire, no. Senator Feldman?
I vote yes, so the bill does carry with that vote. And with that, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Good luck at D27 night.
District 27 night, we got food downstairs, y'all. You heard the man.
And music.
And music.
And-